Great to have Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys, of course, with Barrett Sports Media. We got lots of NFL Gold Nuggets feature to go over with Ian. It's all presented by David Kreisman and the great staff at DC Kreisman Jewelers. Ian, good Thursday, buddy.
Yeah, indeed. How are you guys doing?
We are doing well. We got a few things to run over today, and can't wait to get your take on that. On these headlines. We'll start first, guys. Ian, it looks like Brian Flores has some company in his lawsuit against the NFL for discrimination in its hiring practices.
Yeah, two coaches joined Brian Flores' racial discrimination lawsuit against the NFL. Frankly, I thought more would have by now, but maybe that's just an ongoing process. But I think the name that will pop up to local fans especially is Steve Wilks. Former Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator, but also former Arizona Cardinals head coach. And Wilks was rather infamously fired after only one season. Granted, he went 3-13, but they pushed him out pretty fast and hired Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury didn't have any professional or NFL coaching experience. I don't know if they interviewed anyone else under the Rooney Rule requirements. And Wilks also says he's still owed money from the 3 years that he had on his contract with the Cardinals. So the other coach joining the lawsuit is Ray Horton, former Titans defensive coordinator, and he says he was passed over for the head coaching position there. The Titans decided they were going to hire Mike Mularkey. That's how far back this goes. And they'd already made that decision while interviews had yet to be completed. So, these coaches, minority especially, went into these interviews with having no chance at getting the job. These were bad faith interviews because the Titans had already decided they were going to hire Mike Mularkey, but to check off a box or meet those Rooney Rule requirements, they still went through with these interviews, which is the whole point of Flores' lawsuit.
Yeah. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, Ian, I wanted to ask you, when this was first announced, Brian Flores talked about it being a class action suit. Does that mean others have to join in with him for it to be a class action suit?
I don't believe it means others have to. I think it's sort of like an invitation. Come one, come all.
I got you.
I'm sure a lawyer would have a much better definition than I could provide. But that's my understanding of it, is that they don't have to have other people, but Flores and his lawyers filed that lawsuit with the hope that others will join.
Here we go, right? Teams building culture. They have rules, they have regulations, and I love it. It's like, it seems like there's rules for the players and the coaches, but, the owners can do whatever they want, at this point. And, we don't really have time to dig into the whole Washington Commanders situation with, 6 U.S. attorneys general basically, saying Dan Snyder should not be running any NFL, much less a pro sports organization with the record on sexual discrimination and other issues.
And all Washington football fans would go along with that.
I think
over his long tenure there for a number of reasons.
I mean, they were probably over him years back, yes, for sure. What's Daniel Snyder done for this team except run his mouth? I mean, it's. But we'll probably dig into that, at another time. Let this story develop maybe a little bit more. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys, presented by David Kreisman and DC Kreisman Jewelers. Now, Ian, Steelers quarterback Dwayne Haskins, the late Dwayne Haskins, was tragically killed crossing an interstate down in Broward County, Florida. As family and friends mourn his passing, Ian, is there any update on that investigation?
As far as I can tell, there hasn't been. Florida authorities, the Highway Patrol and whatnot, hasn't revealed very much. Like, even the actual circumstances of the accident have not been revealed. And unfortunately, that sort of left the window open for people who, on social media, who claim they were on the scene or were driving at the time and what they saw. And we don't know if those accounts are true. But again, in the absence of actual information, that creates a vacuum that other people, other sources, reputed or otherwise, are going to fill. So some of these supposed firsthand accounts say that Haskins was attempting to run across the highway, and if Haskins hadn't been hit, it appears, based on these accounts, that he likely would have caused a big traffic accident anyway, because other vehicles, if they saw him, vehicles were switching lanes, and this dump truck that hit him just couldn't get out of the way because he would have hit other cars or other cars were already switching over. Now, again, that's not an official account from any sort of authority, so it's still uncertain as to why Dwayne Haskins was doing this. Did he run out of gas? Was he trying to catch a flight? We just don't know.
Wow, and Charlie, that's an awful long time. We're talking now 5 days between now and that accident, and you would think they would put this as a priority because certainly of the national interest, in this. That's a little bit surprising. They haven't come out with anything yet, not even an update.
I read a thing saying they weren't going to say anything until the investigation was completely done. But, so much speculation already. And, you could say things like he had a disabled vehicle or no disabled vehicle was found, or hopefully it's going to come to light soon.
Yeah, these losers on social media. I remember once someone said, talk about the internet, he's like, it's got everything you need and everything you don't need. I just thought that was the best quote, and it's so true. It's not bringing out the best in our country at times. It's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. Now, Ian, Derek Carr extends with the Raiders, 3 years, $121 million, not bad. And the AFC West is going to be fierce by securing Carr and adding Devontae Adams, plus Josh Jacobs at running back. 10-7 last season, yet they fired the coach. I mean, I still don't understand that. But yet, can you visualize Vegas winning the AFC West, Ian?
It's possible. I mean, they did make the playoffs. They lost in the wild card round to the Bengals. But, boy, as you said, the AFC West is so stacked. The Raiders will definitely be improved. I mean, that Derek Carr, Devontae Adams combination, I mean, that is definitely going to be worth watching. I would question the Raiders' defense. They did add Chandler Jones, a defensive end. So between him and Max Crosby, they should have a good pass rush. But I'm not sure they have the defense to compete with the other three teams in the AFC West. It's easy to overlook the Chiefs because they lost Tyreek Hill, but, I mean, they signed Juju Smith-Schuster, re-signed Mecole Hardman. I mean, I still think that the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC West. But, boy, I'm really intrigued by the Denver Broncos after adding Russell Wilson.
No kidding. Throw that in there as well. And, of course, the Chargers. Yeah. Adding on the defensive end, which was their Achilles heel. And so, Ian, you're basically, if you had to take right now, who would you take to win the AFC West, the Chiefs or the field?
Yeah, I'd still go with the Chiefs.
Okay.
I think, especially with Patrick Mahomes, at quarterback, Tyreek Hill is a big loss, but I'm not sure. Especially with Andy Reid, such a great offensive coach, I think he'll find plenty of ways to use the talent that he has and make up for that loss.
Think about those games between those four teams. They're going to be just epic this year because you can make a case for every one of them being so much better. I'm excited about it.
Me too. The AFC West has now become the most difficult division and certainly the most competitive division in the NFL. Sorry about that AFC North, but kind of slipping there a little bit. As Ian Castleberry from Barrett Sports on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. Thanks to DC and the staff for bringing us our NFL Gold Nuggets feature, DC Creasman Jewelers. All right, so we're going to get to Baker here in just a moment. But, Ian, which QB do you think gets traded before training camp begins in August, Baker or Jimmy G?
This is going to be sort of a cop-out answer, I think. I don't think Baker Mayfield is going to be traded. I think the Browns are going to have to cut him. So I guess to answer your question, I think Jimmy G has a much better chance of staying with his current team if the 49ers decide Trey Lance isn't ready and whatever. They have Nate Sudfeld as well, who they re-signed. But I would think they'd like the insurance policy of Jimmy Garoppolo there with Trey Lance. Whereas the Browns, I mean, I know we've talked about this the past couple of weeks. I don't see how they can afford to keep him. I mean, he's due nearly $19 million in salary, and there's not another team that's going to trade for that. They're going to wait for the Browns to cut Baker Mayfield. And the Seahawks are the team that gets mentioned, including by Baker Mayfield himself. But if you're the Seahawks, why would you take that unless they have that much salary cap room and they think they can afford it? Why wouldn't you wait until the Browns cut him and then sign him at a much lower salary? Yeah,
I mean, it's weird. With Jimmy G and Baker, the situations are different, right, Charlie? I mean, Baker, you're out, dude. You just signed Deshaun for $230 million. Yeah. Meanwhile, I kind of get the impression the Giants are not ready to let go of Jimmy G until they're certain Trey Lance is NFL ready. So who knows? You feel like Jimmy G's being held back to move on by the development of Trey Lance. We'll wait and see on that. But your thoughts on the two different situations?
And see, both of them are different. But you look at Jimmy G, and he's done nothing but win. but you've drafted Lance and he's going to be your future. Do you give it to him and get rid of Jimmy G? I'm not sure I do. I keep him just because they're a good enough team to win right now. With Mayfield, I mean, that's all about money. The thing that's overlooked, Mayfield is what he is. Limits about playing quarterback, limits about being mature. But he's got, a 500 record with the Cleveland squad that when he walked in the door couldn't win a game. And so he might can help somebody. I don't know.
Well, and that's yes. Well, if you ask Baker, like Ian said, and that was a weird interview on that podcast just a day or two ago. I mean, he was just cutting loose. It just meant I'm listening to the sound bites. I'm like, if I'm an NFL team, I mean, is this guy mature enough? That's just a little bit wonky. So, Ian Castleberry, speaking of Baker, he recently told that podcast that he felt feels disrespected by the Browns. And you know what? Okay, he may have something to say there. But in a weird moment, he mentioned the teams that might trade for him, and it was a very short list. It's like Baker's just listening to guys like Schefter and Peter King and others. He's almost like, well, I hear the Seahawks might be a good fit for me. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. I could go there. And it's just like, oy vey. But does an interview like that just lower the interest in Mayfield, even if he becomes, if you will, a free agent, if he's indeed cut by the Browns?
I think it does. If you're Baker Mayfield's agent or if you're the Browns, you just putting your face in your hands and think, oh, man, would you please just be quiet and let us take care of this? But I mean, I understand him venting. I think it does speak to his maturity, as you said, Pat. Disrespected by the Browns, what does that mean? I mean, maybe the Browns did intend to go forward with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback for next year, and then all of a sudden, hey, we got a chance at Deshaun Watson. Who wouldn't change their plans, right? I mean, of course the Browns changed direction. We can get this guy. Okay, let's do that. Now, were they Baker Mayfield? No. I mean, he's not. I guess he's their franchise player, but it's not like he's not Aaron Rodgers, right? He's not Tom Brady in terms of status with the team, respect throughout the league. So maybe the Browns could have handled that better, but I also imagine that maybe this situation was dropped into their laps and they decided they had to move.
I hate the whole term "I was disrespected" kind of thing. If you had a chance to get Deshaun Watson, just football-wise, without regard to anything else, you're going to do that. And, respect, no respect. This guy's better than you. We're going to take him,
Yeah, Baker's ego, here's the deal, guys. And Ian, this is what I was thinking when I was hearing sound bites from this interview. It reminded me of Baker Mayfield when he grabbed his crotch when he was at Oklahoma and kind of, shook it at the other sideline. That's kind of the Baker Mayfield I was hearing yesterday, and it made me like, ugh. It made me a little bit uncomfortable and not feeling good about his future there. We'll wait and see. I mean, is it just the Seahawks at this point, Ian, as NFL insider Baker Mayfield says?
I think it is. I mean, are the Panthers interested in that? I think based on what you just said, Pat, I mean, I think it's really important for him to go to a team that has some veteran leadership that can let him know. I mean, you want to compare it maybe to the Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr. situation with the Braves, okay, this is how we do things here, and that sort of behavior isn't going to be tolerated. But how many teams fit that category that actually need a quarterback right now?
Hey, with all this being said, I still think he's a better fit for the Seahawks than Drew Lock is.
Agreed on that. Drew Lock's just
I agree too. I mean, at least Baker Mayfield. Charlie, you said he's a 500 quarterback, but at least he has a proven record. He has experience in the NFL. Drew Lock, I mean, the number on his jersey might as well be a question mark, right? I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah, my God. It's just, they were talking about the Seahawks coming in on Colin's show, and it's just a hot mess. I don't know what they're going to do on their quarterback situation. And, even Baker Mayfield has mentioned briefly, maybe the Panthers would be interested. I swear if they sign Mayfield, I'm going to root for the Falcons, the Steelers. I don't care. I mean, because we don't know where the Panthers are going. We'll get to them here in just a moment, but there's talk that Carolina may trade that number 6 pick down a little bit, where they feel either Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett could still be hanging out, and maybe they get themselves an extra draft pick since they don't draft again until the 4th round. But Ian, do you think the Panthers should draft an offensive lineman, gamble on a quarterback? The trading down option doesn't seem like a bad idea.
The trading down option is very appealing. When I didn't realize this until looking it up earlier today. Carolina, they have the number 6 pick in the first round here, but then they don't have another pick until the 4th round of this draft. They traded their 2nd round pick when they got Sam Darnold. They traded their 3rd round pick in the C.J. Henderson deal. So they need picks, and the only way to get that is to trade down. So I think that is the most appealing option, especially you got to collect draft picks. You got to accumulate talent if you're the Panthers. However, if offensive line is the priority, it's very possible they won't get their guy at number 6. I mean, Evan Neal, Ekwonu, I'm